Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We have a very informative program planned for you. We will have a time at the end for Q&A. We do have index cards up at the front table. If you wish to submit a question to be asked at that session, that would be great. I'm hearing music. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't think we had it quite did. That's all. Sorry about that. I'm Margie Lekowitz, president of the board of directors, and we are happy that so many of you have joined us this morning. If you were expecting coffee with Peter, hope you aren't disappointed. We were going to either call this Mimosas with Margie or the meeting of the board and change the refreshments. But unfortunately, that would have necessitated an assessment increase, and we figured you didn't have to do that. I want to, of course, first of all, acknowledge our wonderful staff. We have Peter Christian is in the back today. Our general manager. Todd Lindstrom, our assistant general manager. Christy Christian, Lifestyle Services, as always, Michelle Chisholm, I don't think Michelle is here with us this morning. ARB, Willette Lee, Community Relations. Pippi Eichor is down in front. And I'm sorry, I was amiss at not welcoming those of us who are joining us virtually this morning. David Mills, Maintenance. Chief Vanessa Green, who heads up all of our Trevor Scott, tennis, and of course, the dream team in the little corner office over here that keeps this place running, Jen Westerfield and Shannon. My fellow board members that are here with us today, that some who will be doing our presentations, Ed Shotland, Vice President. Steve McManus, Secretary. Keith Schlegel, Treasurer. Dave Barnum, ARB Rep. Rex Garner is not with us. He is Maintenance Committee Chair. Christy Graham was not able to be with us this morning either. She is Chair of the Lifestyle Services Committee. Bill Zarilla, Mike heads our Security Committee, and Bill heads our Covenants Committee. And I forgot to mention Steve McManus, of course, is Chair of the Communications Committee, and Keith Schlegel is Chair of the Finance Committee. So let's get started. Yes.
Let's make some noise.
There. So we wanted to talk a little bit about strategic initiatives that are present and future for our community. Our vision, as you see, is to maintain the beauty and the integrity, to operate efficiently, and to ensure that all of us as residents feel safe and secure and delighted to live in this wonderful paradise that we call home. The plan is a proposal, the plan is developed to help us achieve all the processes that we are looking and the goals that which we want to accomplish. It is a roadmap, and it allows us to set strategic priorities, allows us to initiate best practices, and helps us organize our activities so that everything, our programs and our products and our services are all aligned with our vision. Let me take a moment to interrupt myself, and I forgot to recognize our, Patsy Bryson, who is a representative to our town council and a resident here in Italy. Thank you for joining us as you often do. We appreciate it. The components of the plan are the vision, the themes, the priorities. We do a SWOT, which is strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We organize our goals and objectives, and then we initiate the plan and monitor it. And by following our plan, then we will ensure that we will achieve our vision. There were multiple themes for the 2026-2030 plan, as you can see here: good stewardship, safety and security, appropriate policies and procedures, sound fiscal policies, and communications. Others are improvement of all of our facilities, implementation of technology, which you've heard a lot about this year, and we're moving very well with that program, and adapting to these changing technologies and enhancing our recreation programs, products, and services. So the way the plan is structured is that there are 7 different steps, the 8 goals and objectives. The first is those that are of execution by the board and the general manager. And I'm not going to read through all of these for you. The second is for boards and committees to work towards, and then specifically those that relate to ARB covenants and maintenance. And then finally, those for security, recreation, and communications, actually lifestyle services. Sorry, we didn't update that slide. There are 5 objectives for administration, 4 for ARB, 3 for communications, 3 for covenants, 4 for finance, 8 for maintenance. And of course, this document is available on the Engage platform for anyone to read at their leisure.
What do you look it up under?
It's under governing documents.
Thank you.
The lifestyles had 3, security had 6. And then this is what the actual implementation portion of the plan looks like. This is at the back of it. So you can see here, this is as an example, this is the architectural reviews objective number 1. These are the strategies that they will be applying in order to achieve the objective. These are the measurements. And then this is the status. And we ask the committees to keep in mind, and the board as well, that this is our roadmap. This is something that we need to make sure that any decisions that we make are within this pattern of activities, objectives, and then this last column, on an annual basis, the committees review their particular objectives, update the status, and then the board reviews this entire document. Technology.
Mark,
Yes.
so this is a 5-year plan. I saw it 26 to 2030. Is that what I saw there? Can you go back to that?
Right. Well, it is over a 5-year period. We started in 25. This is what 26 through 30 is going to look like. So when we were doing this review, which was in the fall, I believe, we looked at reevaluating our priorities based on past successes, tracking the progress to date, understanding our performance, and maintaining a long-term perspective, which we'll hear a little bit about how that is being initiated in our capital improvement plan, and then decision-making to make sure that we continue to be a successfully run operation and a successfully vibrant community. As I alluded to, this isn't set in stone. This is a fluid document. It changes obviously over the years of its operation. It is affected by our economics. It is affected by our ability to retain residents, to bring in new residents, and to accommodate the needs and the wants and the desires of our residents. And again, all the while ensuring that it's in line with our strategic goals and our vision. Okay, any questions on the plan? Nope. Good. All right, moving on. You may have heard that we've got a beach renourishment project going on. And it has been very extensive. And what I would first like to do is recognize Peter Christian for his efforts and his abilities to bringing this opportunity to us as a community. And we are sure that the outcome is going to be as successful, if not more so than we anticipate. So please let's. If you haven't had a chance yet to read the cover of this month's Plantation Living, you'll see that there's information about it, about the beach renourishment. We are thinking at this point that somewhere in, Peter, what are we anticipating that we're looking at?
February.
February as our completion date. It's an expensive project, as you know, and we appreciate all the support. And we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of it. So, as they say, Pippi, roll tape. All right, so I think it's amazing. I think it's going to be unbelievably wonderful for all of us in our community. I think it's going to be just one more plus for making this an amazing community to live in, and another enhancement for those of us who want to for those people who want to come in and join us. One of the things I do need to stress is this is a construction site. The beach is closed until officially opened, whenever we determine that that is available. It is not a playground for children. We go climbing on the rocks, as we have seen people do, and security has had to go out there, take them down. Not a dog walking area yet. It is not a play area. It is not a pedestrian walking area. It is a construction zone. And we please cannot stress enough, please do not go on the beach for your own safety until we declare it opened. So 200,000 cubic yards of sand. Total cost astronomical. Rich, copy of that report? Yes. And there it is. Any questions on the beach renourishment? Oh, we got a couple. Peter, I may need you to jump in here. Yes, sir.
I've been told that after the groins are placed, more sand will be reintroduced because some of it already has washed away. Is that the case? And
No, it's not.
Okay.
What's there is going to be there for now. We do have a permit that is good until 2030 to do sand scraping. And we're gonna hold that, obviously, that permit when we really need it, because it will be a massive renourishment. We only get one shot at it. Once the groins are in, it will really stabilize the area, much more so than it's ever been before. And I just talked to the contractor who's doing the groin. It's approximately 8,000 tons of stuff. 5,000 tons of 2-ton stones, and the remaining 4 tons of small stones that go on top. Geomats have to go down, which they started delivering those today. Those will go down to stabilize the stones so they don't sink into the sand. Then they will do the process of putting the larger stones on first and the small stones to cap it. And they'll run both parallel and perpendicular to the beach. And I think they have a slide of that.
Yeah.
Just to share with you.
yeah, that was my follow-up question. Are there, I heard 6 groins, and do we know where they?
That is the configuration right there. Yeah, and it's several. And you can see that some of them run perpendicular to the beach and have a little Y at the end. And there are others that are parallel. And again, they are designed to break up the wave action, stop the migration, down to the far end by Reba.
Thank you.
At this time, we don't have a plan to exercise that permit. We want it, when we do it, we want to do it when it really needs to. And we have 5 years, and I want to wait until we get to the point that we really need it. Or it may be that it's stabilized enough that we may not need it right away. So, but there are no plans right now, and that may change with the weather and the next storm that comes through, to put more sand on the beach.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Maybe this is an engineering or mathematician question. 200,000 cubic yards in relation to a football field, how can you equate how much?
It is probably about 20 football fields. I paced it off from the boardwalk to the high water mark, and I stopped at over 110 paces, and my paces are a little bit more than a yard. And it goes down, one football field after the next. So, and we were putting in maybe 8,000 cubic yards of sand at a time, which in relation to this is like a drop in the bucket. So, but it's obviously we've gained an entire football field for the entire length of that project, which is enormous.
Do I see another hand back here?
Once this is done, who's gonna be responsible for the maintenance and cleaning of the beach, rooming, that type of thing?
You're looking at, you're looking.
So what's that gonna mean? Is there?
Well, and in fact, I've already talked to the chair of the Lifestyles Committee and the Security Committee, because we're gonna have to look at, rules for people putting up tents, rules for, no fires on the beach. Below the mean high water mark, the town rules will be in place. And also, possibly additional trash cans. There's a host of things that we're gonna need to look at, because obviously this is going to maximize the use of that amenity. I see a lot of people not even going to Islanders Beach, just going here, because it's gonna be really, really neat.
Yes, sir.
We have, once it's done, new abilities. Can we wade in? Can we swim? Can we paddleboard? Can we
You can do
kayak?
whatever you want.
Really?
There are no lifeguards on duty. Just bear that in mind. I mean, we're not gonna have a lifeguard there. But you go in the water, you do it at your own risk.
If you know how deep it'll get,
It is relatively shallow. There is a shoal that's a lot closer now than it was before. That at low tide, is very apparent. And I almost, if I didn't have my dress clothes on, I would have walked out to that shoal at low tide now. So you can walk out quite a ways. And the area where the pluck mud used to be, because a lot of that beach used to be marsh, and it was loaded with pluck mud. Now it's expanded back out and you're beyond that. And a lot of the sand that they placed, obviously, most of it ended up on the beach, but some of it ended up in the sound. So you have this nice sandy beach that goes all the way out. Just obviously be careful when you go out there because the tides around here are relatively large. There could be a 13-foot difference in a day of a tide. So I always warn people on a boat, if they, come in, if you land your boat and you stay there for a while, you may not leave until the next day.
And as you know, we have no short-term rentals, so you can't stay overnight.
They predict, weather permitting, sometime in February, they'll have all the groins in place. And obviously, that's gonna be, dependent on the weather. They are not working like they did on the beach nerves. It's not a 24/7 operation. They're doing a 5-day-a-week work week. And again, very reliant on the amount of stone that comes in. They can only put 15 to 17 stones on a truck just because they weigh so much. So, and you're dealing with, 8,000 pounds of stone. It's a lot of trips.
Can they work in both high and low tides, or can they only work in low tide?
Once they start installing the groins, I think they have to work around the tides. Right now they're just stockpiling stone. So that is not, tide dependent. So they'll probably start to replace some of the stone at low tide and then hopefully can find their deliveries. They can do the deliveries anytime and stockpile stone. But, getting all the stone there is a large part of it. Placing it, they told me it's easy. It's just getting all the stone there.
Any more questions on beach? Yes, in the back?
In the past, we had like after storm situations with stuff washing up on the beach, like dead trees. and Stuff, is there part of the plan to make sure that stuff stays off the beach?
What is your question, Jim?
My question is, after a storm, typically there's a lot of stuff that washes up on the dead trees, and other things that are up there. Is there a plan in place as part of the maintenance department to make sure that?
Different microphone. Do we need to repeat the question, Pithy?
Yes, please.
Okay, the question is it debris that comes up on the beach, is there a plan to remove it? If you're just talking about reeds and that, no. If there's a tree or a piece of dock or something of that nature, if it's in our needs to remove it, we can try to remove it, yeah.
All right, anyone else? Very good, let's move on. Thank you, Peter. At this time, Ed Shotland is going to give us all a review with regard to the nominating on our nominating practices, and we are in election time right now, so and chair the nominating committee.
Thought I'd just go for a swim. Skip this section. That's okay with everybody. I gotta figure that out.
Other way.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about a little bit about the nominating committee and a little bit about the election process. Pursuant to the bylaws, nominating the board, nominations for the election to the board should be made by a nominating committee. The nominating committee consists of 9 members. It's appointed every January by the board. Traditionally, it has consisted of members of former presidents of the board, chaired by the vice president of the board. Similarly, the election committee is also appointed in January of each year. And in each case, they serve for the calendar year. So the nominating committee for this year was actually appointed back in January, and maybe I'll get it right this time. Those are the members of the committee. Committee must have an odd number of members. And as I said, it's chaired by the vice president of the board. What I want to do. Go back. The committee can make as many nominations as it wants, as it decides. But at the very least, it needs to come up with 3 nominations. Has to have enough nominations to cover the vacancies. If you're not aware of it, there are 9 members on the board, each serving 3-year terms. So traditionally, normally, there would be 3 vacancies, 3 opportunities for new candidates. The committee, in determining who they're going to select to be nominated, takes into consideration how long someone has lived here, their service to the plantation, whether they've been involved in board committees as well as other activities within the community, prior experience that might be applicable to helping to guide the community, education, conflicts of interest, and other relevant qualifications that might be identified as we do the interviews. What I'd like to do is go through the election schedule with you, so you understand how it all occurs. Call for candidates was in the October plantation living. The deadline for submission of the interest form was this past Friday, a week ago, at 4:30 in the afternoon. We have our applications, and we are in the process right now, starting to schedule the interviews. The interviews traditionally take place during the month of December. Sharon White in Peter's office is currently in the process of contacting each of the potential candidates to set up interviews. The committee has already met to prepare for the interview process. And we are, as I said, we've already come up with one glitch, because I had met with the committee earlier to try to pick out some dates. We've already had 2 potential candidates who are out of town, out of the country actually, who can't make those dates. So Sharon's in the process of looking for an alternative dates for at least those 2 candidates. But in early December, we will be interviewing the candidates, as I've mentioned. And at the end of the interview process, the committee will decide how many candidates to put on the slate. And we will immediately notify all of the candidates of their status with regard to their application. As you know, in the last couple of years, we've had a couple of petition candidates. There is a deadline for submitting a petition application, and that will be February 4th coming year. And that date is set up partially to allow for the petition candidate to be represented when we publish and announce the candidates in Plantation Living, as well as to set them up for their interviews when we have for their presentations with meeting the candidates. So on February 15th, of the February 15th Plantation Living edition, we'll announce the candidates. And we will have a Meet the Candidates forum on February 19th. And you notice up there, we have added a second forum. So based on feedback from the community with regard to availability of all of our community to attend during the day, we have added a second forum to be held in the evening. So we will be having one in the evening and one in the evening. Ballots will be mailed following the presentations. Balloting closes a month later. And at the annual meeting, which is scheduled for March 21st, we will announce the winners. I'm going to hold the questions for the cards at the end so that we can continue with the other 2 presentations. I guess, what do you want me to hand over to Keith?
Thank you, Ed, for all that information. I just did want to make one statement though, because I was chair of the nominating committee last year as vice president, and this came up and we had this clarification. So all applicants proceed through the interview process. There is no screening of applications. That's a misconception that it was brought to our attention. So just so you know, if you fill out an application, you will be having an interview. Keith, you want to talk about money?
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. A number of us on the board have been advocates of doing more open forum type activities with residents. So I think this is at least a good start.
Consistency, right? There you go.
So I thought we would start with a little perspective here. 2016, some of you were here, may remember Hurricane Matthew hit that year, followed by Irma. These are what our fund balances look like. We have an operating fund, a major repair and replacement fund, weather casualty fund, and a capital transfer fund. And here's where we were at year end in 16 to 2025. The difference is $5.8 million today. That's after $4.5 million on storm cleanup and about $4.7 million for Dolphin Head. So I think you would agree that your assessment funds are used very cautiously and carefully by all of the people who've been involved in the management of Hilton Head Plantation, Todd and Peter and folks on the finance committee. So what does the finance committee do? I think most of you understand, review and monitor the budget, operating expenses, insurance renewals and coverages. I'm going to do a quick slide on that just as an example of what we look at. View and monitor investments. Priority one is preservation of capital. So our investments, your money is invested largely in treasuries and FDIC insured funds. We occasionally will have some uninsured funds. When in particular we're doing large projects, it's tough to time exactly when those numbers need to be available. So Todd has done a good job with laddering out investments. Generally no more than 2 years, but by laddering, I mean we have different maturities coming due each couple of months so that they match what our cash flow projections are. We've talked occasionally about other types of investments. I think pretty much every finance committee has done that every year at least once. And the answer is always preservation of capital comes first. We're not going to try to chase basis points in return. Monitor cash flow and come up with a long-term plan for capital projects. One of the things we've done this year is built out a 5-year forecast. Now, as you may know, not all of us can predict exactly where the markets are going to be and where interest rates are going to be. It's not an exact science, but at least we have a tool now to match up as we go forward with our 5 to 10 year capital plan. We have an idea of the dollars. And give this to you as an example of why our costs increasing. You spend 2 or 3 hours every year going through our insurance program with our insurance agent. Every year they take a look at rebidding different programs, different companies, different coverages. And over the years, we have added some coverages. We have revised the reinsurance firms that we use to try to keep the best coverages and the best pricing we can. We've had a couple of good years here, 8% in this past year, 10%. Overall, though, we think we've done a good job keeping these numbers that painful, not devastating. Major budget windfall. Marge talked about the Pine Island Beach renourishment. That is part of the stormwater management system for the island. It's not just a perk that we got a beach. That marsh is critical to the overall stormwater management for the island, which is how it got approved through the town. But as noted, we were spending $200,000 a year putting 10,000 yards of sand. Now we have 200,000 there, which is probably a 7 to 8 year renourishment, provided that the groins hold it there, and maybe it's even better. That's an enormous win. Stormwater management, we were spending close to $200,000 a year in the past on that. The town took that over several years ago, and thanks to Peter's work with the town. So that money is now not being put out by Hilton Head Plantation, it's being put out by town of Hilton Head. Hurricane debris, again, $45 million spent by the town, maybe $5 million here within Hilton Head Plantation. Fuel sharing agreement with the town. I point that out because when we have a disaster, a hurricane, the town, all emergency vehicles have an opportunity to, get fuel at Hilton Head Plantation, first stop on the island. They pay for that fuel, but what they then do is they push all the debris away so that they can get into Hilton Head Plantation and they clear our roads first. So our security team and our general management team can get in here early, so there's a huge benefit to that. So where are we today? Revenue versus budget, 24 to 25. Expenses versus budget. So we're pretty much on point. There's always a surplus at this time of year because we collect the $6 million in annual assessments in January. So that kind of is reflected here. So we have less revenue in the last couple of months and we have normal expense lines. We are confident that we're going to end up this year with a surplus. What that exact amount is, we obviously don't know yet. We have about a $7.9 million annual revenue here. 75% of that is $6 million is your assessment fees. The next largest component of that is decals and gate passes. I've seen forwarded to me occasionally complaints about gate passes. For those of you who don't know, that's $1.3 million, 17% of the budget. It's a significant number. And in fact, it's a user fee for those who are getting those services. They're paying for that, and that's part of what keeps your assessments low. Our security team manages a lot of that effort. When you see them on the phone, they're not talking to friends, on the phone, dealing with a lot of gate passes. The more we can get people to use the gate system online, the fewer amount of time the gate officers are going to have to deal with that. Our security team does a lot of things here. I was chair of the security committee for years. So you all see them at the gates. Last year, they responded to calls for service from residents. Just want to get this number right. 4,273 calls for service by residents throughout the year. So we owe them a great deal of thanks for that. We have officers patrolling your roads 365 days a year. They compiled 162,000 miles of patrol on these roads to make sure that what you want happening in Hilton Head Plantation is happening, and what you do not want happening is not happening. So they do a great job there.
Excuse me, before you proceed, just a question on the comparison in revenues versus budget this year versus last year.
Yeah.
So about $200K decrease. So what was the driver behind that?
Can you repeat the question?
The biggest driver was in 2024, the decal and gate passes, our presumption was though that revenue would start to decline. The property is close to built out. There are 40, 50 residential lots still available. But there's 70 total, something like that, but half of those are adjacent to someone else. So we said, as we're not going to be building new houses, ultimately we're going to start seeing that number come down. But what's happened is people spend $900,000 on the home and decide they got to redo the kitchen. So we had budgeted less in the decal and passes in 24 and kind of blew out that number. This year, I think our total budget is for the year is $1,365,000, and we're going to track very close to that. So that delta is the biggest difference on the revenue side.
So you basically adjusted the budget for this year to take into consideration what we saw last year as well as the renovation.
We kept the decal and gate passes number consistent with what we saw last year rather than decreasing. That answers the question. Again, that's always a guess. The goal is to try to be as close to breaking as we can with some surplus. And as many of you may know, the surplus at the end of the year moves into the capital transfer fund. The way Spring Lake was built, pool and facility, and the way the Dolphin Head was built was through that capital transfer fund. So the dollars that are in excess don't leak. They just move into the capital transfer fund so we can do the next series of projects. Can we hold Mr. Christian?
Yeah. Couple of other things you need to consider when make money. The RV boat storage area, we had significant revenue over expenses on that. We raised up because we were below normal. Pippi has done an absolutely outstanding job. That thing, the other thing everybody has to realize, we live in a very, very weather dependent area, and we have to plan for the worst possible scenario. Storms, a minor storm can blow the budget to pieces. We have huge pieces of equipment that a bolt costs $50, let alone a component. So we have to anticipate whatever can go wrong, and what we don't want to be at the end of the year is in the hole and have to ask you for money. So we are very, very conservative about how we operate, and the board and the finance committee has endorsed that. And obviously, we've been very, very successful. I don't remember a year where we ever went into a deficit, and that included when the stock market crashed and the housing market went all the heck, and we froze everything. We froze wages, we froze projects, and at the end of the year, we ended up coming out a little bit ahead, believe it or not. I don't think we've ever had, since I've been here, a negative year. And that's because of those guys' stewardship.
Let me just add, the expenses are very well managed. I think the departments do a really good job of coming together with what they expect those to be. Those are reviewed by the finance committee and then by the board. So there's a lot of diligence on that side. On the revenue side, there is more variance because we just don't know where some of these numbers are going to come in. So we have a best guess, keeping in mind that we start this process in July and we finish by September. So we're a full quarter before the new year starts. So it's not always easy to be perfect. So we'll do our best. Thank you all.
Thanks, Steve. Our last organized topic is an update from David Barnum, who has coordinated our efforts in working towards the development of a comprehensive long-term plan for our community. So, David, I will turn that over to you.
Thank you very much, Margie. Well, good morning. We're getting closer to noon. Thank you all for your attention. Certainly appreciate it. Let's see if I can break the chain.
Dave, use the mic.
Yeah. So hopefully you're all aware in September 2025, we announced that we were going to go down this path of taking a more structured look at some of our amenities and resources. We have a number of different things that are getting a little aged, being a 50-year-old entity. And we wanted to try to get an outside perspective on those amenities, what amenities are we missing, based on some things that are, currently very popular in the world. We want to make sure that our whole goal in life here is to do a lifespan analysis of these amenities, because they cannot all be replaced all at once. Maybe some of them can be refurbished. Maybe some of them don't have a lifespan that would allow us to refurbish, because it really wouldn't pay back in time. So we wanted to go off and get a third party that does this type of work and have them give us their best, opinion, recommendations based on a lot of data. Because the entities that we are employed or may employ would have done this for other POAs and HOAs and also municipalities. I just want pride. So what we did is we went out and we searched the database that, there's a lot of databases out there from different types of consultants. And so we put the parameters in, we came up with 41 different entities and that service the Southeast. And from the list of 41 firms, we picked 5 to work with, including the incumbent Wood Partners, who has done 3 projects for us so far here in Impatient. And then we went through a process of developing an RFQ. We discussed it, at the executive committee level, at the board level, and did a couple of spins on the RFQ itself. And then we submitted it to the 5 firms that, gave us the opportunity to send it to them. Now, of the 5 firms, 2 came back with proposals. One of which was a company called Half, founded in 1950. They're a very large entity. They're throughout the southeast. They have a lot of certified consultants and people on staff that do everything from, surveying, structural analysis, landscaping, architecture, etc. And Wooden Partners also submitted. Wooden Partners was the incumbent, and they are basically, they've done 3 projects for us and done a great job. And both presentations that were sent back to us were very, very professionally done, a lot of good detail in them. And we certainly are in the process of evaluating them. 3 firms that opted out simply because they wanted to have the whole enchilada up front, and that wasn't our process. Our process is to first determine the analytics and the requirements document, making sure that, once we start this process, the whole community is involved in it, and then move forward to get what we're doing right now. The board is evaluating those 2 responses. If we commit to the project, all of it will be included some way, somehow in the process of, prioritizing, taking a look at. And hopefully everyone will be satisfied, all that stuff to satisfy everybody, but at the end of the day, what I'm hoping for is that we're all satisfied with the level of analytics, level of process, and the care that we want to put into spending the money that you all provide to us to keep this place a world-class entity and a world-class place and a fresh place. We want to be fresh, we want to be up to date, and maybe not on the bleeding edge, but we certainly want to keep that world-classness that we have here to continue for however we're here. So at the end of the day, again, we're going to continue to update you all on this process, to engage through announcements. And the process, I believe, is very much required in order to make some really great decisions and to also prioritize properly how to spend that money and give the best payback to all of us as residents here in Hillsbend Plantation. Thank you. Yeah, we did establish. Yeah, we did establish a budget. We established $1,000, as a budget for this process. And right now we're in the process of taking a look at both proposals and going through the selection process based on our requirements.
Just one quick question. If you have up there, if we commit, it sounds like it should be more when we commit. Is there a chance that the board will not approve this?
I don't know, we have 9 votes, so, we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody is motivated to get an outside look, a fresh look, a different perspective. And to have the analytics to back up however we choose to prioritize those things that we go after first. And I think in that regard, that's a continuance of being great stewards of the money and the responsibility that we have to provide you all with the best residential experience we can provide with.
Do you have a timeline for finishing your evaluation of the 2 proposals?
Yesterday. I go through the process. Okay, I happen to be a person that doesn't have a lot of patience, and I like to execute. So, but there's a process that we have to go through, and thank God for the process, because everybody has a lot of good, valid inputs, and they all need to be considered and meshed together and to make a decision. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just don't understand what information these companies are expected to provide that we are not able to provide for ourselves through our own analytics.
Well, there are a couple of things. Our own analytics are relative to our own ecosystem and our way of doing things for the last 50 years. There are companies out there that play this game every single day with either a different municipality or a different HOA or a different POA. And they see things, and they see technology, they see applications, they see solutions to problems that we may not see. And by getting firms that deal with, say, 40 different POAs or HOAs, or 20, you're going to get good information based on the averaging of successes that the companies have executed upon. And we want to leverage that, and we're willing to pay some money to get the best practice, the most current practice, and then we can pick and choose, you know, how we go and go after those. But that's the reason why we want an outside entity as opposed to inside, because even if we're doing it inside, we still have to go outside to a builder, we still have to go outside to an architect, to a landscape person. These companies, not only do they do the landscaping and architecting, as Wooden Partners did for us in the last 3 projects, but half does the same thing for a number of other projects. So by taking this information and averaging over a number of different entities, we're gonna get a better end product.
We have a question on Zoom. Asking you to please expand on how resident input will be collected and incorporated.
There's going to be meetings, focus group meetings. And like I said, if we go down this process, each company has a different way of approaching it. Some of the companies, you know, would approach this with a simple survey. Other companies would do more focus group work and a less, maybe one survey. So depending on whom we pick or how we proceed to go forward, the point that we're trying to make here is that you folks are going to be engaged in the process of moving forward, as you have in the past with the survey that we had before. We had a survey of what things people want to have happen. I think if we have information, more information on how much, how long, what's the service like, those types of analytics, be able to make better decisions on what we actually want to prioritize with the.
I just wanted to commend the board for taking this initiative. And thank you guys for the due diligence you're putting, guys and girls, thank you for the due diligence you're putting into this. I totally support it. I think it's a great idea.
But I think at the end of the day, when you're spending the kind of money that we're talking about, you want to make absolutely sure. And if you're spending, you know, $5, $6, $7, $8 million, $100,000 to make sure that you're on target and you get the latest and greatest and you're making the best work product available to the community is key in the whole discussion. And I, for one, won't make that.
Yes, hi, this question isn't specifically directed to you, David, but since you're speaking, well, I'll ask it to you. So I'm a strong proponent of going outside and getting, you know, an independent perspective on direction that we should head into in the future. My question is more geared towards the board as well as to the general administration is, do we have an organization or a network of like-sized and minded POAs across the country that we can tap into as peer groups to ask about best practices, ask about how they handle different things, whether it be ARB or other types of activities, so that we can kind of pressure test our offerings and reassess them and adjust them along the way?
The simple answer to that is yes, we do. And that is through our general manager, Peter Christian. He is extremely active in his professional and credentialing society, and a former president, a board member, a committee chair, and so forth with that. And so that is the parallel organizations to our community where they can share information, and it's a think tank operation as well as credentialing. The other is how well connected our general manager is on this island and in Beaufort County. He sits on committees. He is very well known. He has great relationships with the powers that be outside of the gates. And so his role as our general manager is to ensure that we do get that information. The other side of the answer is most of the time, people are coming to us. Because we've set the bar as a community. So people come to us. And Peter has presented at various meetings and conferences and conventions. I know they did a big one right after Matthew about how do we sustain our existence, or not Matthew, excuse me, COVID, how do we sustain existence. But as I said, you know, I'll be very proud of the fact is that they come to us to ask. Peter, do you ever come back?
Thanks, Martin. Todd and Chrissy and I, we attend national conferences on a regular basis. We also attend a large-scale managers conference that is hosted by a different large-scale community or several large-scale communities in a geographic area. And we visit those communities and basically get into the nuts and bolts of what they do. We also have a large-scale managers listserv, which has hundreds of community managers that are large scale, that we can ask any question and we can get information from now around the world. Todd and I have connections in Australia, Dubai, South Africa, Italy, who we correspond with on a regular basis. And Margie's correct. Most of the time people come to us and ask us what we're doing about a particular issue. And the greatest compliment is when someone asks for a policy and then a couple of years later, you see your same policy come back with somebody else's name on it, which is kind of cool. I think our procurement policy, Todd, has gone around the world about 3 or 4 times, which is kind of amusing. But we get ideas from different communities all the time, and we bring them back here and we bring them before the board and we implement them. So the answer to your question is we're very, very well connected.
And notwithstanding, I mean, the common sense answer too is that now that I'm retired, I have a lot of friends in different POAs. So I go visit their POAs, I ask questions, I look around, I see what things are, what they have based on what we have. We have a really great place here, but there's always little things, little nuggets you can pick up along the way. And the whole point here is to be able to manage from a fiscally sound basis and upgrade all those nuggets, upgrade all those amenities in a way that doesn't negatively impact us, financially, but really gives a great payback from a resident experiencing.
All right, we're going to go to the questions that have been submitted. Debbie, do you have anything else on?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, good. I want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. It says, I have heard that there may be a plan to eliminate the bocce only annual fee and combine a higher fee. That is not something that would be a board issue. That's an operational issue. So, and we're not familiar with that information. So that's an internal, but please speak to Peter afterwards on that. Secondly, committee work is important to the vitality of HHP. Absolutely. So let me take this opportunity to thank all of you, thank my board for all the fine work that they have done. I've got about 1 quarter left of my term, and it has been an absolutely wonderful opportunity for me, something I've really, really enjoyed, and I very much enjoy working with this group of very bright, intelligent, insightful, caring gentlemen and ladies. Y'all have that. And of course, the staff as well, who is there to support all that we do as a board and all that you all do as a community. And then, of course, to the committees. The committees are the operational arm of the board. Everything that happens starts at the committee level. Or if something comes at the board level, we send it to committee. They're the ones that do the homework, they're the ones that do the research, they're the ones that do the education. They make proposals, as does the staff operates on the same way, and then it filters up to the board, staff through Peter to the board, and committees to the board. So all of the operations that we do on a board level is decision-making on items that have been carefully and thoroughly researched before they even come to us. And at times when it just happened recently, when we thought we needed some more information, we sent things back to committee. And so you'll hear more on that. Would the board consider, the rest of the question is, many committee members serve for very long periods, while other residents who wish to serve are denied. Would the board consider reasonable term limits for committees? That is not something that we are considering at this point in time. We feel that the committee process has been successful over the years. And so we are at this point continuing that. We do encourage everyone who is interested in serving in the community in some way to step forward and offer their support for the board, for the committees. And then the idea is that committee meetings are open as you know from past conversations, so you can get in touch with the chair and let them know that you'd like to attend the meeting, and unless there's something extremely confidential that's being discussed, and that's on a limited, doesn't really happen on a regular basis, but obviously you can understand finance committee, ARB, for instance, deals with, delicate, and confidential information that can be served or can be shared. So, yes, please get involved in the committees. We appreciate, some do have very long-term. ARB, to me, when I've attended their meetings, I'm just blown away by the quality of the professionals that we have there that are volunteering their time and their talent and their expertise, landscapers, architects, etc. That you are getting the services of, as your community members are serving in that capacity. All right. Could we consider following Hilton Head's dogs on beach rules, off leash before 9, after 5? So on those who are afraid of dogs, walk the beach between those hours or make the dog's time even more restricted. The dog park is not really safe because it isn't enclosed. Well, those of you who know me know I'm a dog mom. We are a 12-paw family, and I love my babies, but I think that one of the most important rules that we need to follow, and they are not being followed consistently, is that dogs need to be on a leash. The only exception is when they're off your property. We did grant a temporary situation, which we've allowed to continue to have them run, if you wish, on the side of the dog park. That is not without some issues, which is, you can all imagine what those issues are. Some people are not careful and considerate about cleaning up after their dogs. The other rule is the beach, the whole Pine Island is, at this time, always has been, leashes required. We know that people set the dogs off running, other people contact security and let us know about it, and we do our best to control that situation. As Peter said earlier, and he and I have discussed it, I've asked the chair of the security committee to put it on their agenda with regard to rules and regs on Pine Island when we reopen. We're going to get ahead of the issue. We understand that there are going to be situations that we need to address. So as far as something following the town's rules, at this point, the town has not told us we have to. And so we will, as we do with all of our rules and regs, continue to research them and determine what is best for the entire community. We're all of residents in Crooked Pond who will be most impacted by the proposed workforce housing project consulted before the POA board gave their approval, if not why. To correct that, the POA did not give their approval for anything with regard for the project design. What we did give our approval for was encouraging, it wasn't approval actually, it was support of the development of the property behind the hospital. Some of you were here for that program a couple of months ago. Peter and I went before the planning commission yesterday, carrying a letter from the board that encouraged the town to change the 2 zoning regulations that needed to be changed to allow the project to go forward. So that was the decision. Luckily, we are pleased that the town has agreed to change the zoning of that area in order for the developers to continue their efforts on this project. Now, there have been some updates to that since the speaker was here a couple months ago. There have been meetings with the residents of Crooked Pond. The developers have been doing an amazing job with redesigning. So the plan was somewhat different from the one that was presented if you were here for that presentation a couple months ago. And you'll be hearing more on that down the road. We don't want to take the time now, but anyway, one of the things that I was so impressed by was that they called me. The developer called me one day and said, here's what we would like to do. We would like to engage your ARB board in the process, and we would like them to be on board with us. And that is exactly what happened. So I went to the board, and the board said, absolutely, we're fine with that. So They are not required to do this at all because they are outside the gate. But they are working with our ARB to follow our ARB rules and regulations as if that property was inside the gate. And I just think that's an amazing good neighbor and to be extended to us. So you'll be hearing more about this project going forward. Or emails that are submitted by residents to the board. I guess email forwarded to some or all of the board members, therefore to all of the board members. If you're getting a response, it's because the issue is something that requires immediate response. And so Peter usually crafts that response, runs by the board to make sure we're in agreement. Otherwise, if it's just informational purposes, it's included in our monthly meeting board package. All right, I have some questions that I'm turning the mic over to the appropriate speaker.
Thanks, Marty. First question for me was, does our budget include capital improvements for leisure paths? So a couple of years ago, we were spending $46,000 a year on leisure path improvements. The maintenance committee would walk the leisure paths and spray paint the most egregious areas and we fix them. 2 years ago, we doubled that number to $92,000. This year, I think you'd have $102,000.
102.
The budget is split in two ways. There's half of it within the operating budget and half of it within the major repair and replacement budget. One of the things that the board is considering is, given the age of these and the condition of these, do we need to think about spending significantly more for a couple of years to get the leisure paths to a better quality and then reduce it back down again? That will impact what we call your assessment fees. So if you have an opinion on that, certainly feel free to express it to us. We've tried very hard to have our assessment fees as low and reasonable as possible. But we certainly hear the complaints about the leisure paths. So the second question, how can we maintain Hilton Head Plantation with annual fee increases that are less than recent cost of living increases? I don't know if that's a compliment.
What we do.
So I just took a look at 2021, inflation was 7%, then 6.5%, 3.5%, and 2.9%. And this year, year to date, or the last 12 months is 3%. Historically, our increases have been less than, in some cases, far less than the rate of inflation. And how is that done? Well, we've already talked about prudent fiscal management. This year, the increase, I believe, is 5.7% versus the 3%. And part of that is just because we have an aging infrastructure and there are things that we need to improve, including leisure paths. So we're trying to do the very best we can with your money. It may be that we'll see some increases, again, looking at the aging infrastructure. And I'll just make one comment on David's program, the 5-year, 10-year capital improvement plan, master plan. One of the reasons we're looking at doing that is because in the past, it's been very clear what the next project should be. Now we have 2 or 3 or 4 competing projects, including increases perhaps in roads and leisure paths. We spend $600,000 to $800,000 a year on roads. There was a long-term plan. There was a spreadsheet that lists when it was last done, when we expect to do it again. David Mills and Peter, among others, will go drive the roads that are being planned to get repairs done or resurfaced to make sure they actually need to have it done. Same thing with the leisure paths. When we look at all of the infrastructure needs of the community, the thought was, let's get an independent professional assessment of what these things truly are. What hopefully our request to them is, what is the range of cost and what is the timeline to do these things? What we don't want to do is commit to a project and find that everything else gets pushed back 8 to 10 years. We've done a look at what the 5-year history has been of the capital transfer fee funds and surpluses within the budget, have a sense of what we might have going forward, then done a 5-year capital forecast as well. We don't have the money to do everything at once. We're going to need to prioritize it. We're going to go back to you. This board feels that we should try to give you time estimates and range estimates. Again, these are not going to be exact because you're not going to get clear numbers until you have a very clear plan for each. But this is sort of the first step in trying to
do a job that says, over the next 10 years, these are the things that we think we need to do and what we can't do. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Keith. When Keith put up those 4 windfall items, stormwater management, the agreement with the town on disaster management, the debris removal, and the obvious beach renourishment, that removes money that you guys had to put out, every single one of them. In the town's debris removal for Hurricane Matthew, for us, was in the neighborhood of $17 million. We paid for it, that out of pocket. But the town picked up and FEMA reimbursed them those $17 million. If we didn't have the agreement, all of you would have been on the hook, would have paid that $17 million for the agreement. Stormwater management, major infrastructure, the town does. That's millions of dollars over the course of 20 years. We've had that in place. And the beach renourishment, I mean, do the math. They just did $5 million. I don't have a number yet on the groins, but we're looking at an overall, $7 to $8 million that you guys did not have to pay. And this is all because we lobbied state and town and county government to work with us on these things. And the board has been over the years extremely supportive of that. And that's how we've been able to keep the assessment, reasonable, and in some cases, below inflation, because we've been able to get those outside resources. You guys pay taxes just like everybody else to the federal government. You should get FEMA help. You guys pay a stormwater utility tax on your property taxes. And their idea, when they first implemented that, we weren't gonna get anything. And then the board and several staff members support very diligently with both the county and the town, and that's how we got the stormwater management. And then over the years, town realized that we needed to protect that estuary, which was a major outfall for Hilton Head Plantation, the marsh. That's how the beach renourishment came about. So, those are all compliments to the board over the years looking forward. And that's how they've managed those expenses. But we didn't have those agreements, that buck would be with you guys in assessments. Or you wouldn't have.
You got.
I do, yes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve McManus, and I chair the Communications Committee. So I have 2 questions. One was about the process for posting meeting minutes. And the questioner pointed out that the current posting on Engage has board meeting minutes from August. So we'll look into that. I don't know, could be if you have a comment on that, but.
What was the question? I'm sorry, I was.
So the question is about the publishing board meeting minutes, because the current version of the meeting minutes is August. It's now the end of November.
No, that's
But
not
generally speaking,
true.
as most of you know, in the next week in the December board meeting, we'll review and approve the prior month board meeting minutes. And generally speaking, within about a week, those meetings end up getting published. I'm not sure what the glitch is right now, but there really shouldn't be any delay
No.
in getting that done.
And just to add to that, if you read my president's notes and the president's, most of my letters include a summary of critical issues that were decided at the board, so that you have that information. Which comes out on the 15th of the month, and the board meeting is the last Tuesday. So we closed that gap a little bit by providing that information for you. But as Steve said, we cannot post the minutes until they've been approved, and they're not approved until the subsequent meeting. That's just the process. You have one other?
One other, yeah, so the question was on the tri-annual survey that residents receive, and the question was, what is the board doing to review that? So currently, actually, it's in committee, it's in the Communications Committee, and we had a long conversation about the survey in September. We revisited it again this week in our November Communications Committee meeting. And hopefully most of you are familiar with this, right? Every 3 years, the survey goes out to all the residents. It's about 34 questions. There are questions within some of those questions. Some folks feel that it's sort of too long. And we did some analysis about what types of questions are in there. So the first 10 or so questions are really demographics. You know, age, gender, working, retired, all of that sort of stuff.
The middle section is a lot about services. There's some questions about amenities that we have, like Pine Island and the conservancies. And the survey wraps up with what I would call customer service questions. Have you visited the POA office? Did you have an interaction? How did that interaction go? Have you had an interaction with security? How did that go? So there's themes within the survey, and what we're looking at, again, this is in discussion right now, is do we break those themes out and maybe we do an annual survey, but we change the topic? So I'll just hypothetically, next year we ask the demographic questions. So we now have those. The following year, maybe we ask the questions about services provided by the POA. And then maybe we ask the sort of the customer service questions in the third year. So we get into a rotation where we're constantly collecting similar information, but alternating it and not just having one big survey, waiting 3 years and going to the next survey. That's current thinking and current work on that. We'll do some more discussion of that in our June.
Is that a communications question?
No.
You'll get it at the end. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mike, you have one, I think I gave you one on, was it Leisure Pass?
Well, and mine is as well.
Go ahead.
Mike Harris, nice to be here. Thank you for you being here. Question on the leisure pass, kind of was alluded to just a second ago. We some of the men, the guys on the maintenance committee were part of this last year. We had a group that went out and marked all of leisure pass where there were areas that needed to be repaired. How many saw those areas? We painted circles around them. Pretty obvious they were, and all the repairs, to my knowledge, have been done. I'm not the leisure path guy, the maintenance guy anymore, David is, but all those seem to be repaired. I don't see any leisure paths that got circles any place anymore, so that's good. That's one of the things we did, and as you saw, heard, we put $102,000 into it, which is quite an improvement. And next question is, how do we manage the maintenance requests? And David keeps a track, again, I don't know this now, but last year he used to keep track of everything, keeps a real good track of it. And kind of gauges when things can be fixed, when we need materials for certain things. So it's, they suggest we have a ticketing item, a ticketing way to go about it, a system of some type for the request, and keep track of how their request is coming along. Maybe that's something we want to consider, I don't know. That's those answers.
Yes. Oh.
We have a question from Zoom. Is there a schedule for improving the white paint on road edges? They seem faded in many areas and are necessary to drive safely after dark in Hilton Head Plantation.
You know, that's a good question. I haven't noticed, I hate to ask David, I don't know David. We have the white lines along the edges of the striping lines.
You have an answer? Good.
This year, we're gonna do stop bars and crosswalks, and next year, we're gonna pick up on the road, on the road, striping, right?
Any other questions?
This is just a comment, but the Engage software that the HHP has purchased has a ticketing option already in the software.
Does it?
It does.
That's good to know. Any other questions, Jessica?
As a daily biker on my there are still a lot of red marks. There are a lot of places that you
And we will pick up that, we spent all the money this year, and we will pick up in January on the marks that are still outstanding.
Anything else? Let me just let you know that I think David Mills does a great job.
We have one last question that finished up this morning, a couple actually on the same topic, e-box. And Bill is the chair of the Covenants Committee, and we, well, I'll let him.
Okay, yes, hi, I'm Bill Zerla, and I'm chair of the Covenants Committee. I've served on the Finance Committee for a couple of years, the Covenants Committee for a couple of years. And so I was awarded this job of coming up with a solution for e-bikes on the paths. And so I think the questions that I had were, okay, what's going on with e-bikes? Right? I heard the rules that it was dropped without any limitations, and have we released the results from the survey that was a couple of weeks ago? Well, I think the best way to address these is I'll just give you a kind of an update of where we stand and how we got. And so I inherited this job, and we immediately formed a kind of a super committee with people from the maintenance, security, and lifestyles committee, and discussed the problem first. And so that group produced a list of rules that I'll give you a little summary at the end here that came to the Covenants Committee. We then set up a working group of 3 or 4 people that went through, and you know, much of it is being dealt with by communities all over the country, by communities, by Hilton Head itself. And people are struggling with this because e-bikes, they're not motorcycles. They're not bicycles. And they will travel faster than most of us can pedal on our own power. And kind of like, to be transparent, I don't own an e-bike, to say that. But I do, I've rode a road bike since I was 18. And I know it becomes natural where you can bike and where you can't, where you need to be careful and where you can go 20 miles an hour. Yes, ma'am.
Please differentiate that there are 3 different types of e-bikes.
Yes.
So when you use the term e-bike, you have to speak separately on all 3.
Yes, and that's with this group. That was one of the critical things, was one, getting a definition of those 3 categories, and then deciding what's appropriate for the roads. And so we'll start with that, and I'll tell you what the decision is. And there's rules that have come through the Covenants Committee yesterday, and will be going to the board for approval or discussion at our next board meeting in December.
So I would say it's premature to
It's premature.
talk about any of the details.
Of real deep details, because they probably will change, but I'll tell you, generally where we're at. There are 3 types of bikes, class 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 are very similar. A class 1 e-bike is really just a pedal assist. It makes it easier for you to pedal. And class 2 will have a throttle, so you don't even have to pedal. But you can accelerate with the throttle. Class 3 has a throttle and will go faster. Now, what determines, and this is a federal law, each bike has to have a emblem on it saying what type of bike it is. And class 1 and 2s have 750 watt engine or below, an electric engine. So, and they're also regulated to only go 20 miles an hour. Now, I rode one of these bikes up in Pennsylvania in a nice area, but I could not, after 40 years of riding a bicycle, get it over 20 miles. It simply won't do it. You start spinning your wheels. So, now Kenora paths. Would I recommend anybody going 20 miles an hour on most of our paths? No. Simply no. And why? I work with the town, I talk to the people in the town. They have rules on line of sight. And that means when there's shrubbery or if you're coming around curves and you can't see.
Right.
That's where the accidents happen. So the efforts that have been put forward here to clean up the paths, to take the bumps out and clear the shrubbery are critical to solving this problem. I personally would like to have to continue calling them leisure paths. If we were not allowing e-bikes on the paths, especially a category 1 e-bike, they're gonna turn into sidewalks for walkers only. And I know it's a controversial thing. Some people say ban them, some people say, let anything go. But, it's something that, all of us have to police ourselves. One question was, how will this be enforced? Security, we cannot have them chasing people around on the bike paths and giving them tickets. And that simply won't work. And we have to, as a community, agree that there will be rules, and it's basic bike etiquette. That when you're passing somebody, say passing on your left, when you're going through a curvy section, don't go 20 miles an hour, or you will be some. We as residents have to take some responsibility. There's only so much we can do to clear the paths, to fix the bumps, and to give you a good line of sight, but then you still have to use, and parents have to address this with their children that are out there. Most people, I've never seen so much fear of 16-year-olds. And that's really, the hard part to solve. So parents have to educate their children. And the other things that come out of the committee that we are interested in doing is we think we have schools and communications. We have to set up our classes for what is good bike etiquette and try to communicate constantly so that people know the rules, understand the rules, buy into it, and have themselves enforced. And that's community, but I can't enforce it. The security can't enforce it. You have to. So, as I say, I won't get into the details, but basic concept is a class 1. Class 1 and 2 with 750 watt engine or less, even with the throttling, but only go 20 miles an hour will be allowed on the paths. Class 3, we originally thought, this was a bit of a delay, that class 3s were like mopeds and need to be licensed by the state. That's not true. The state that a class 3 in the state are not licensed, they're considered to be bicycles and treated as bicycles. So therefore, we will be proposing that we only allow class 3 bikes to run on the roads. And that is because the state of South Carolina requires everybody to have access, bicycles and motorized vehicles, to public roads. So we can't ban them from the public roads. And kind of like my final thing I want to say is that if we took the class 1 and 2 e-bikes off the path, they would be allowed on the road by state law, and we've already had people complaining about people riding their bicycles up whooping nice. We're gonna get more of that. So I guess I'll summarize that that's my report, let's say, on e-bikes and where we stand. And we're happy to hear input from that, but I think we did quite a serious job of trying to get as much input as possible to come up with a decision. Any questions? Yes.
Are motorcycles banned from our roads?
Yes,
Absolutely.
So,
they're banned from the plantation.
okay, so motorcycles are banned just like e-bikes.
Yes,
Okay.
No, e-bike,
but no,
e-bikes are not being.
I know, but they could, that's what, our roads are private, or everything.
But
That's correct, but.
Yes.
So you could.
yeah, the weight bikes are allowed, and they won't because they're gonna use the bicycle lanes until they get it to community. That's where it stands.
It is very much so.
Yes, I just want to clarify that, yes, so the e-bike survey has been published, it's on Gage, right?
Under resources, documents, secure,
Resources, documents, security, is that correct?
secure. Just-
Secure.
It's secure documents. It's not
Secure
visible to the public.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. We are pretty much out of time. Thank you all for coming and, please, the board members will be here briefly to, if you need a one-on-one. The, emails, board email, and we continually appreciate your comments, your concerns, and your commitment to our community. And happy Thanksgiving.